Hi guys, Tom here with more Hearthstone. Today I'm going to cover a deck. It is from a player named Nick Spags, who recently won Liquid Hearth Open #1. This deck was developed by him and played on the current patch, so unlike a lot of deck lists that you'll find online, this one's up to date. It still works in the current meta. As you can see, this is his exact deck list over here. I call it Burst Druid because that's a little bit more to the point than his name of Hear Me Roar. And the goal here is actually, unlike a lot of Druid decks that you see played that try to control the board until the ultra late game to get out things like Ysera and massive costly minions that can win you the game pretty guaranteed, this one actually aims for more of a mid-game win, where even against very aggressive decks, it'll be able to take control and extract a little bit more card value than them in order to win around 6 or 7 mana. And against control decks to actually be able to take on that aggressive role, maintain board control, and come at them pretty aggressively on in the early game, and finish them off with a couple different combos that it has. So let's take a look at the specific cards. Innervate is just a standard card for accelerating your deck. It's good in most Druid decks, in all honesty. So for 0 mana, you get 2 mana crystals. This just allows you to make really strong early and mid-game plays, and even late game, I mean, if it's the only card in your hand, it's obviously worthless, but sometimes having 12 mana instead of 10, where you cap out, can make the difference. But definitely more of an early and mid-game card. We also have, Claw is just early game control, very standard. Same with Wrath. Power of the Wild is very, very important in this deck. It combos well with Force of Nature, Violet Teacher, and Imp Master, as well as, like Harvest Golem, where you're not summoning a lot of minions on one card, but you're having one minion that's very able to stick around. So Power of the Wild is very good, and also fills a similar role to Savage Roar, which Nick Spags named his deck after, right? So very, very clearly it has an important role in this deck. Bloodmage Thalnos and Nat Pagal are the only 2 legendaries in this deck, which is another thing that drew me to it. It's, there's a huge demand right now for decks that don't require a lot of legendaries, and this one fills that role. Nat Pagal can be very, very strong if you can protect him, but in all honesty, you can throw a Novice Engineer in for him and Bloodmage Thalnos. Or if you feel the spell power is more important, you could go with a Kobold Geomancer in place of Bloodmage Thalnos. But you won't lose too much value on either of these cards, or you could use a second Loot Hoarder in place of them. Loot Hoarder is obviously... So the choice between Novice Engineer and Loot Hoarder right now is a little bit interesting. Loot Hoarder, when it dies, you draw a card, and it's a 2/1. Novice Engineer is now a 1/1, and when you summon it, you draw a card. So cases where Novice Engineer is a lot better than Loot Hoarder are late game situations where you just need that extra card right now. Loot Hoarder is much, much, much better early game, however. Whereas the Novice Engineer you can pretty much ignore. The Loot Hoarder can take out one of those super standard 3/2s, something like the Panther summoned by Power of the Wild, or a Knife Juggler. So against aggressive decks, Loot Hoarder is actually great. This is one change that I've already made on this deck. Actually, Nick Spags has a Novice Engineer in place of this Loot Hoarder. I choose Loot Hoarder because I am seeing more of those aggressive decks where I'm at on the ladder. I'm also going to make another change rather quickly right now of just subbing out one Chillwind Yeti for a Shield Master. Where's he at? So many shields. There we go, 1 Sungeon Shield Master. So we're losing 1 damage in order to get Taunt on our minion, and that's it. And I'm just making that change. I've played this deck quite a lot up until now, and I'm making that change because I actually have been seeing myself lose to some hyper-aggressive decks where they just hit you in the face over and over again. So having that Sungeon Shield Master out at 4 is oftentimes game-winning versus Druid of the Claw getting a taunt out at level 5. So I'm very happy to have that extra taunt in my deck. Other than that, the last card I want to discuss is Force of Nature. You summon 3 2/2 Treants with charge, they die at the end of the turn. This obviously combos super well with Savage Roar, which only buffs your minions for a turn. It also combos pretty well with Power of the Wild. So that's a card that you usually want to hold until It wins you the game, or it stops you from losing the game on your opponent's next turn. It is a weapon of last resort that you shouldn't usually be using to secure board control other than in very clutch situations. It needs to be a game-winning card to be worth its 6 mana. Other than that, so yeah, Ancient Lore is a super standard card. Just draw 2 cards. It's really what keeps this deck alive if it has to go late game in order to get its combo cards out. And other than that, it's pretty standard, just things that are good. So let's go ahead and, with our little changes made to it, go ahead and hop into a ranked game to see how it plays. So we're going to go ranked. I am a Sea Giant right now, rank 5. It's rather late on in the season, but I've still been seeing competitive decks. The season ends in 2 days. I'm recording this on January 29th. There's not supposed to be a patch or anything, so this deck should still be good, but the season ends on January 31st. And a lot of times on that last day, you'll run into people that are like, I've already done what I wanted to do on ladder this season, and they're just playing whatever. I haven't been seeing that yet. We're playing against another Druid. Most Druids are not playing my type of deck right now. They are playing much more control-focused, and what that means is that we want to take control of the board early on, and these are actually great cards to do that. This swipe, usually you don't want to throw back swipe, but in this case, I'm considering it. I think I am going to throw back swipe, because I'm not expecting him to have much minion presence on the board early. Getting an Ancient of Lore there was not at all what we wanted to have happen, though. Just kind of a little bit of an unlikelihood there. We get our Blood Mage Thalnos. We're going to go ahead and just pass this turn. Holding onto the coin sometimes allows you to get your card combos off a little bit earlier. For instance, Force of Nature and Savage Roar together cost 9 mana. A lot of times you want to be able to get those out on turn 8. So he just swiped, like he just, shapeshifted and attacked me. Again, we do want to take control of the board though, so in opposition to what I said, I am going to go ahead and cast an Imp Master early on. Try and get some tokens out snowballing. Even if at turn 4 he manages to swipe, which does 4 damage to one minion and 1 damage to all other enemies, so if he's casting it on me, it hits me and all my minions for 1, and one of my minions for 4. Even if he does do that, that's not the end of the world. But if we draw a Savage Roar, that can potentially put us extremely far ahead in this game. I'm going to go ahead and cast my Harvest Golem and just attack him in the face. Hitting a Harvest Golem with either of those minions is just not a very good trade. He costs 3 mana, and he effectively has, at least 4 toughness, but a lot of times effectively like 5. Sometimes even 6, because you usually have to overkill him by a little bit. He's using Wrath. Probably for 1 damage on this Harvest Golem. No, he goes for all 3. So that stops him from drawing a card. Let me get the preview on that. So he could have drawn a card if he dealt 1 damage and then just hit with his Harvest Golem. But he wanted that damage in order to take my Imp Master down a peg there. Okay, so he drew Power of the Wild, and in this case it's really strong. We can get 4 power and 4 toughness for 2 mana. That's really cheap. So I'll cast Blood Mage Thalnos in order to do that. Just simply to buff him, that's all I was going for there. Why I had to cast him first. I don't think that I actually want to trade any of my minions against that Harvest Golem. So this is one of those cases where he's a 2-2. When he dies, he comes back as a 2-1. So killing that first incarnation doesn't take any of his damage off the board. And it would cost me 2 of my damage off the board. So we want to force him to attack us. Even if he kills this Imp Master, it's actually just a 2-1 right now. In fact, it will die at the end of my next turn and become a 1-1. So he kills an Imp with his Golem. That's just fine with me. Gets out to his Druid of the Claw and is coming at me. He used Innervate in order to attack that. That was rather silly of him, I would say, to burn an Innervate for that. We still have Blood Mage Thalnos out, so we get our spell damage +1. on our swipe, which will allow us to easily pick off his Druid of the Talon, or Druid of the Claw, rather. Digging a little bit too deep into the Warcraft lore there. Hit him in the face for 4. And now we're sort of settling into a little bit more of the late game here. We haven't drawn any of our combo pieces really, either Savage Roar or Force of Nature. Him dying will allow us to draw a card. Blood Mage Thalnos is certainly a good card, but like I said, he's not a must in this deck. This move is worth thinking about, definitely. Sen'jin Shieldmaster would directly protect my 2/2, and will probably die to him shapeshifting and attacking with his Druid of the Claw, but will protect my 2/2. It'll deal 3 damage to his Druid of the Claw, which I don't have a finisher for, though. I don't have something to deal 3 more damage to his Druid of the Claw. So, with that in mind, I think I should probably cast the Chillwind Yeti, and shapeshift, and probably attack him. The reason why I'm going to attack him is largely a matter of deck philosophy. He doesn't want to rush me down. He's not going to try and go for my face, I don't think. So hitting him here puts his Druid of the Claw into 1 health territory when he hits Chillwind Yeti, which sets him up for a good swipe. He gets down Nat Pagel, and he chooses to take that trade. That is interesting to me. I'm not sure that I agree with his decision to attack the 2/2. Regardless, here we are, and I think I want to... There's a lot of things I want to do on this turn. Imp Master, Swipe, and Ancient of Lore are all things I'm considering, so I can get a pretty good value on Swipe by like hitting him, and that'll deal 1 damage to Pagel and set that up for me to kill it. I think that that's actually what I need to do here. Another alternative would be casting Ancient of Lore, which then can trade with anything that he has on the board without dying. But I think the Swipe's a little bit better here. And the natural follow-up to the Swipe, I think, is casting the Imp Master. The other option is shapeshifting. I don't think that's a good value to just shapeshift and attack his Nat Pagel for 1, though. Pretty huge swipe value on the board for him, but that's okay. We just got pretty good value on our swipe as well, so... It's absolutely not what he's casting. He silenced that. I think I would have preferred to deal 2 damage to it. Yeah, especially if you've got the taunt out there. That Power of the Wild probably would have made him rather unhappy had he gone with silence on that, though. We have 8 mana. I almost certainly want to shapeshift and hit Nat Pagel with these 2 minions as well. So that leaves me 6 mana to play with. Keeper of the Grove being in there is actually interesting, because it allows me another 2 damage, but that 2 damage is not very usable. I'm going to go ahead and cast Sen'jin Shieldmaster. I may in fact Power of the Wild, but if I draw Force of Nature, it's going to make me unhappy that I burnt Power of the Wild. Regardless, I think I will do that. This will allow us to pick off Nat Pagel with only 2 of our minions, and use another one to hit this. I think that that's rather good. Leaves it at 3 health, still not threatened by Starfall or Swipe from the enemy Druid. Starfall is a Druid spell that can deal 5 damage to 1 minion or 2 damage to all minions. He goes with the Blood Mage Thalnos swipe. Classic move. Derives a bit of value from it. I would definitely not hesitate to attack that with the Sun Fury Protector, yeah. Earthen Ring Farseer is going to top off his health a bit. And this is kind of where, like, the versatility of this deck is rather cool, because I'm not going to use it this turn, but Ancient of Lore is going to allow me to draw 2 cards, and against this more control-ish Druid, I'm actually going to be able to get it back into the game against him. I'm going to go ahead and cast my Druid of the Claw. I'm going to silence Blood Mage Thalnos so that he doesn't get to draw a card off of him. And we shall continue. Cards I'm scared about him having would be like Ragnaros, Cairn Bloodhoof. But he is not producing any of those. I think spitting out my whole deck is pretty good, or my whole hand is pretty good here. Maybe holding onto the Harvest Golem, though, and instead being able to shapeshift and take this out with just those 2. Allows my Keeper of the Grove to attack for a little bit of value on these guys, but I don't know how important that actually is to me. We'll draw 2 more cards and see what other options come up. Stranglethorn Tiger is rather nice. So I don't want to run my Keeper of the Grove into him. It would kill his Sentient Shieldmaster, but it would set up a pretty huge swipe value, and I believe he's only used 1 swipe. I could be remembering that wrong, to be honest. And this will knock him down to 13 health. I have 11 on the board and a claw in my hand, so I'm actually going to do that. Though, that was silly. I should have probably killed the Sun Fury Protector. Because my Druid of the Claw will not survive. That was a bad calculation on my part. He's got a good swipe there, so now he can trade the Sun Fury Protector that way. Should have traded the Sun Fury Protector for sure. My Keeper of the Grove would still be at 2 health. Or sorry, at 1 health, rather. That was a big value play for him, but I'm still not that concerned about this game. I have way, way more cards than he does in hand. And all he's going to have on the board after this turn is his Harvest Golem. So I have 7 damage on the board, plus 4 in hand, and 1 more from my hero power. I have 12 damage. He has 14 health. So if I can find 2 direct damage here, I will be able to kill him. 3 direct damage here, I will be able to kill him. 1 direct damage here on this next draw, and I will be able to kill him. Now that we've seen how his turn played out. And there it is, we get the Druid of the Claw, a little bit of that late game burst. Sadly, we didn't get to see the combo aspect of this deck at all, but we do get to see it win a game, which is rather nice. Alright, well there you have it. A mid-range Druid beating a late-game Druid in the late game. He did not really get many of his huge power cards, assuming that he has them. No Ysera, no Ragnaros. Got Cairn Bloodhoof at the very end there. If he had come out a little bit earlier, it probably would have been a different story. But likewise, if I had gotten Savage Roar at many points in that game, it would have knocked him down to health, where it would have been easy to kill him a little bit later. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like if you did, and look forward to more Hearthstone in the future. And, you know, if you try this deck out and like it, tell a friend about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.